It's Friday, September 1st, 2023. Let's talk about the news. From the Associated Press, UN warns that hundreds of thousands in Southeast Asia have been roped into online scams. The UN Human Rights Office has released a report indicating that at least 120,000 people in Myanmar and about 100,000 in Cambodia have been forced into conducting online scams by criminal gangs. These gangs seem to be targeting migrants and often lure their victims with false recruitment communications, implying that they would be hired for real jobs, only to then lock them into scam-related labor, preventing them from leaving through use of torture, sexual violence, detention, and other sorts of coercion. This parallels international concerns related to so-called pig butchering schemes, where victims are fleeced by, often but not exclusively, supposed women on dating and social media sites, but these supposed women are actually men and women being held against their will by gangs, forcing them to conduct these sorts of grifts. In June, 2,700 of these forced workers were rescued in the Philippines, and the Philippines, Thailand, and Laos have been flagged as other destinations or transit sites for people being trafficked in this way. From Ars Technica, NASA officials sound alarm over future of the Deep Space Network. NASA officials have said that the agency's Deep Space Network, which is made up of antennas in California, Spain, and Australia that are used to maintain contact with all sorts of space missions, is straining under the weight of all the communications signals it's managing. The DSN is currently maintaining contact with about 40 missions that, lacking the network, would not be functional, and another 40-plus missions will be added to the network over the next decade, nearly doubling the amount of traffic it will have to deal with, despite already being overburdened, at times by as much as 40%. Those running the network are also worried about the increasing size of the communications it's juggling, as the hardware being sent into space becomes more sophisticated, and the transmissions they send to Earth grow from bytes into gigabytes, everyone understandably wanting 8K images and videos, but each upsizing of resolution, dramatically increasing the load placed on these antennas, all of which means there are signals that the global scientific community might benefit from that are being lost or delayed. Earlier planned efforts to build out the network are currently 5 years behind schedule and will cost more than $700 million to complete, and new communication stations that will be placed around the world and dedicated to lunar missions won't be operational until 2027. And from the Wall Street Journal, Visa and MasterCard prepare to raise credit card fees. Two of the largest credit card companies in the U.S. are planning to increase the fees they charge merchants in October and April, which some estimates suggest could result in an additional $500 million in fees each year. Merchants pay to accept credit cards every time a customer uses one, that fee going to the card company, but they also pay for using credit card networks, these latter fees typically going to the bank that issued the card. U.S. merchants paid Visa and MasterCard about $93 billion in fees in 2022, which was up from just $33 billion in 2012. And it's likely this fee bump will result in higher prices for some goods at some vendors, though Congress recently introduced legislation that would allow merchants to process these cards using other networks, which is something they can already do for debit cards, and that could lower the fees they have to pay to process card swipes if the law is passed. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandably.com.